have to kick things off with an apology. We told folks, our listeners yesterday, that the Airtel listing was taking place yesterday, and we were wrong. So I apologize for that. The stock exchange actually came out and said, "Wale, is today."
Well, we've been told it's today, so
That's what
let's
we're
hope
being
it's
told.
today.
It
Yeah.
is it is in fact today. Okay, fine. And so I can't. Well, we already discussed this. I cannot ask you for a buy, sell, hold recommendation on the company. However,
Contact your investment advisor.
exactly. Please conduct your investment advice because I've been getting lots of questions from people. Rotus, should I buy Airtel? I'm sorry, can't give you a recommendation on that. But we can talk around the circumstances of the company. I do understand that there's a bit of debt that Airtel has that they have to settle. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. So leverage ratios for Airtel was going to last year was quite a high number. I think if you look at the last 3 years, they gradually brought down that number. I think the attraction for Airtel essentially was that USD debt tends to be cheaper than local currency debt
Right.
across most of its African operations, and so they had a bit of that. And so, however, if you're going to do an equity raise, naturally that would mean a lot of investors sort of raise eyebrows about around that. And I think part of the reason why they're doing the IPO as well, is to actually pay down a portion of that debt and bring that ratio much lower.
Mm.
So I think they generate a lot of free cash flows to be able to maintain that level of debt. I think the business model across most of its regions, Nigeria, mobile money in East Africa, as well
Hmm.
as data, also generates. It means the business will be able to generate a lot of cash flows. I think, yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So again, fingers crossed. We will see whether or not they actually listed it, but we hope they do. Okay, of course, the stock market update from yesterday. I have to quickly get our Airtel out of the way, but the market was actually up yesterday, 0.06%. So marginal growth in the positive region, 29,287 points. Flour Mills was our top gainer, up by 10% yesterday. Top loser was Forte Oil, which is down by 10%. So good to see at least some positive activity to kick the week off from the stock exchange. All right, we move from Etel Wale to a well half year. It's July. We're looking to the end of the year now for things to come. One of the brokerage houses came out saying that Nigeria is basically walking on eggshells. Nairametrics did have a piece on that. Where do you stand as far as how the second half of the year is looking? Of course, we don't have any ministers yet. We know that to guide us, to guide the different sectors of the economy. But putting that into perspective, how's the second half of the year looking from where you see it?
Hopefully, we get clarity. I think that's the key word. I
Mm,
mean, on what policies are going to look like over the next few years. Because if you look at the way equity markets have moved, it's like the market doesn't have that clarity as to what policies the government is going to pursue in the second half. Is it going to be more like what we saw in the last 4 years, or going to be more different going forward? I
mm,
mean, you don't have any cabinet in place, so it's pretty much. Well, let's just. I mean, I think that's where we are. Nothing is either moving
yeah.
and then I'm moving up on that. However, on the external environment, if you say maybe at least things won't be, outlook suggests that things won't be so bad. I mean, oil price is likely going to stay between, most people say between $60 $65 a barrel.
Okay.
US Federal Reserve looks likely to cut interest rates, although some
Trump
people
has
say,
bullied them into that direction. I mean.
yeah, so with that, you get a sense that the external environment would be supportive. What just needs to happen is our own reaction domestically. How do we respond? Is policy going to be much more supportive of a higher growth number, or
Mm.
maybe otherwise?
And of course, there's still the talk about the need to do reforms.
Reforms, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
there's still
yeah.
the reform conversation is still out there. Okay. So things are looking mildly positive, I guess, on the half year front. Okay, let's look at this the story from Business Day. How the federal government plans to reform the power sector. Now, I think while the gist behind this was there was a document that was released.
Yeah, strange document appeared last week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. It had quite a number. It looked well researched and well written, and it said quite a number of things as to thinking about how policymakers are thinking about the structure of the power sector industry.
Mm.
I think one of the key items they mentioned, which a lot of people have been talking about, is the need for an increase in tariffs.
Yes, the
Again,
the, the, the,
and
the dreaded tariffs.
yeah, the direct tariff increase, and I think more than anything else, I think this sort of made a case for something coming soon. How soon, I guess, is up. But I also made comments regards to a lot of other things. For instance, one of the key issues a lot of people have said is that the level of debt particularly in the disco space, is quite high.
Right.
So there's need for players in that space to look towards raising capital to sort of try and bring down that number. We also talked about trying to come up with a template that's more reflective of actual costing for power. So what we have presently is one which uses assumes currency exchange rate levels, inflation levels, and you're not necessarily sure how these things sort of walk into the actual cost of power at that distribution level. So I think this document says they're going to look to come up with one which sort of tries to explain that. And there's a lot of things with regards to discos, how Gencos can now be much more freer to go and do more agreements with customers and things like that.
Okay.
I think a much more liberalized power sector program, although the document wasn't signed, which I think is why a lot of people are.
Very, very good
Yeah,
point.
it wasn't signed, so it's like some people are saying he wasn't signed by anybody. So how do we know this is a government document? And there's no minister.
Thank
place,
you.
so
There's no minister for that sector. Okay, but while I was talking to you about this, talking with you about this downstairs, at the end of the day, right, when all is said and done, this, as far as the power sector is concerned and the tariffs are concerned, this is going to fall on us, the consumers. Yes, is that where we're looking at things?
Well, yes, I mean, naturally, there would always be a tariff increase, would also mean more money out of the pockets of consumers.
Right.
And so, yes, people, I mean, the last time we had a tariff increase, we did see a pickup in inflation
Aha.
in that period. I think, depending on the scale of what they look to do, last time we had about 45% on average. I mean, this document, you see all kinds of numbers.
Right, it's all over the
Yeah,
place.
50, yeah, numbers being thrown all over the place. So if we get something on a similar scale, naturally, you'd worry about maybe near-term inflation coming through.
Which of course would affect the central bank's mandate of single-digit inflation. Okay, but what about the talk of the grid? I mean, we have discussed this with you off air and in several other places before about this. How certain estates treat themselves as mini grids, right? With the way they treat electricity supply within themselves. Is that something that has to be addressed? Because there's still the whole central grid system. I mean, isn't that something that has to be looked at down the road as well?
Yeah, so this document actually mentions about mini grids as well.
Uh-huh.
You should enable or allow for more licensing of more mini grid arrangements. So basically, like I said, it tends to want to provide a bigger say of more, so you have more liberal say in generating power. So I mean, as much power that can be generated, I mean, bring it on.
Bring it on. Okay, how do you feel about renewables? I mean, there's still that issue of scale or how expensive they are. Yeah.
I think if we can work around the costs, I think
Can work.
that's a way
So
to
that
action.
wouldn't that mean subsidy? With the government, because I think that's how it's done in the West. But let me not use that dreaded word. Okay, we move on from power to Echo. I believe it's not Echo Bank. We're going to be talking about Echo as in the currency here. Headline here is why adoption of Echo may not be possible in 2020. So as we know, we've covered it on the show before. The ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States, they have adopted this single currency. They've been talking about this. Well, how long have we talking about this thing now? 2 decades or a decade? We're talking about it forever. But some folks, from the economists, even you have given your thoughts on this before. They've come out to say, well, they don't think that this single currency might actually work and be possible. What do you think? Where do you stand?
Yeah, so if you look at in economics, the theory of optimal currency areas,
Right.
which pretty much the biggest experiment is the European Union. The key drivers behind why countries want to have a currency union, a common currency, is that if you trade a lot with each other, so in other words, there's a large volume of trade going on within yourselves, then having a currency in between becomes an extra cost, because I need to worry about the exchange rate if I'm, say, a Nigerian farmer or a Ghanaian farmer sending goods to a Nigerian manufacturer. I need
Right.
to worry about currency risk and all of that. That's one. Then I also need to worry about tariffs between those two countries. And so the people who design currency union said, look, if you have a lot of trade going on between countries, you can have one currency that removes the costs associated with currency and the risks associated with currency volatility. And also you remove tariffs. And so what you do is that you deliver lower costs of goods across that region. And then if you trade along with each other, what it means that goods produced within that region will be lower than goods produced from outside that region.
Right.
And it encourages more trading and more production within those countries. And you saw that in the European Union. The biggest experiment, as I said, trade within the European Union increased significantly. And of course, it also helps countries if they have common convergence, if they sort of think alike, economy, inflation, all their economic variables sort of move together. So you ask yourself, do we have that system operational in the West African sub-region?
Mm.
I mean, trading within West African countries is intra-regional trading is. I mean, that number has struggled to go above 10, 15%.
Right.
For how many years?
Right.
And so if you have this low level of trading, what then is the benefit of having a common currency? You get. I'm not too sure. It looks obvious. I mean, if you look at do these countries act alike economically? In other words, is growth, inflation? Do they have the same thoughts around? Do they have this symmetry?
Right.
Regards that. I mean, again, you also find that you have the CFA franc countries all having much lower inflation rate because their currency is pegged to the CFA franc,
right,
to the euro. That's through France. And you have the other countries that have much higher inflation numbers. And so, if you have this divergence, again, it also raises that what's the benefit? We are different. It appears as if we're different. And so I'm not too sure it's obvious, and that's why I think a lot of commentators have generally been skeptical about whether or not it looks likely. I mean,
that'll happen.
I'm not even too sure if it is, because I mean, look at the European when they had their they started with the euro. It was things that were choreographed for years. They had referendum.
Right. To leading up to it.
So here you haven't seen much of that. And I guess what's going to happen as we draw closer to the date, maybe they review their position.
Let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned trade because, of course, I mean we talked about this a bit yesterday. Nairametrics has a story out on the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So you mentioned the fact that intra-African trade has to be there. Yes, for the currency to work. So we've signed it. There's the list. Nairametrics has a list of pros and cons. What do you think about the at least this move to sign the?
Aspirationally, I think is a good thing. As I said, aspirationally.
Yeah.
But in terms of where we are today, as I said, one of the real reasons why we don't trade a lot with each other is because we produce roughly primary goods with very little manufacturing value add, or then there's very little manufacturing activity that goes on within Africa. So we're producing commodities, minerals, agricultural products, and so these things have to be processed elsewhere.
Right.
So there's very little basis for you to trade or exchange those. I mean, look at Nigeria, produce a lot of oil. I mean, the refining capacity in Africa is not large enough to absorb that.
Right.
The amount of oil we produce. And so naturally you always find a lot of Nigerian products will always be going to Europe.
Right.
That's where most of the refining capacity. So until we sort of start to create goods or the conditions that make manufacturing a possibility so that a Nigerian manufacturing base can buy goods from other African countries at a very low cost, then I mean, like I said, it's aspirational, but it looks slightly aspirational.
But the practical side, in fact, even you mentioned oil, cocoa, Ivory Coast produces
the same thing as well. Most of it is in Europe.
Yeah, the chocolate industry, they're the ones booming it over there in Europe, but not here in Africa.
There's still much work to be done. That's the way I'll say it.
Right. Good stuff. Kayode, air traffic signals. What's up with our WhatsApp? Huh? We're supposed to have millions of messages. Is there any technical issues with this WhatsApp?
I think we have technical issues.
All right, we're going to sort that out. And I'll probably have to read everybody's message tomorrow. Apologies if your message didn't come through. But Wale Okurinboye of Sigma Pensions, thank you for your in-depth analysis today on the of our stories. I guess, Kayode, keep it locked. Smooth 98.1 FM.
That's it.
Best business show in the entire country.
In the world.
In the world, yes. All right, Lagos. See you tomorrow. This is what Mr.